Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Manners Live. It's the special Gathering of the Goats edition. I'm joined, of course, by Visionless Dave. Dave, how are you?
Doing quite well. Happy to see you. Happy to get this show going. Gathering of the Goats. There's been a lot of anticipation.
Yeah, absolutely. Tons of anticipation. I am really worried about you because obviously this has been a terrible few weeks for the Robber fans. You more than anyone have been Team Steve since the beginning. But how does it feel when your idol, your hero, just completely turns his back on you, walks away, doesn't give a shit about you, sort of almost kicks you on the way out? How are you feeling about that?
Look, I thought this podcast was sensitive to mental health issues. Apparently not. You know, when it's Mike dealing with it, people have less of a patience. And now Steve, he was burnt out. I think it was as simple as that. I do think it's hard to deny that contract stuff probably played a role, but I think either way, he's still getting to this burnt out period. And if he's burnt out and doesn't want to be there, then he shouldn't be there. I think that's the best way for the show to go. Obviously, everybody loves Cullinane, so there is kind of an absence in the universe for a villain. So I don't know how that's going to all turn out. Is this moment too big for Dave Cullinane? I've already heard stories about him big timing Daver and Jay from the Talking Loud podcast. He's big timing Rich Kelleher. He's not responding to DMs. I think the whole Barstool thing might go to his head.
Well, I don't want to just skip over what you said about. I know you want to put the heat on Cullinane. We'll get there, VD. But how can you say that Steve has actually got mental health issues? This is clearly him using that mental health line as an excuse. He just wanted to leave the show. He wasn't happy in his job. I think it's a bit like what Jared Carabas did. It's such bullshit to whenever you're going through a tough time, just tie it to mental health. Whenever you might want to change jobs, just tie it to mental health. Whenever you might leave New York, tie it to mental health. Clearly, Steve had just had enough. He probably had enough a year ago because of COVID. He couldn't leave then. So I don't think there's any mental health issues. In fact, him sort of speaking about it, you realize everything he said in those shows afterwards, it really wasn't a mental health issue. He just wasn't happy in his job. And as you know, he's never been the right fit for that show, so it's not a surprise.
Many people could describe chronic unhappiness as depression, which I do think falls under a mental health umbrella. And I think obviously the case was kind of the boiling point, doing all that much more work. I think he was frustrated that Barstool didn't monetize it maybe as successfully as he thinks it could have been. So I could see Steve saying, I just had this huge true crime podcast. They didn't sell it right. I know I'm not getting more money. Barstool doesn't value producers. Kirk's going to retire in 3 years. Do I really want to do this for 3 more years, or do I want to get out and, take some time off and try something new? Because I don't know if I fully believe the camper van story, but I do believe that he just wants some time off to do whatever he wants. Maybe make a little Steve Robinson, see the country. But I don't see the downside to it. I think you're confused that Robba fans are upset. We want what's best for Steve. He didn't want to be there, so we're happy he's moving on.
Yeah, but what's it like when he turns his back on his fans? I mean, he admitted on the way out he just doesn't give a shit. He just doesn't give a shit about the show. He doesn't give a shit about UVD. Unlike Kirk, who, despite his craziness, deep down, I think he cares about his fans. Steve doesn't care about you. He's gonna move on to a next job, and he's never gonna think about the Robber fans again.
That's just not true. I've had correspondence with Steve. I've maintained that. I think the guy probably needs a little bit of space. I think even Kirk said they had another phone call with him where they kind of de-escalated a lot of the tension. I think in a month or two, it'll be all buddy-buddy again. I just think there's this natural tension that it comes along with a sudden departure, but I don't think there will be any bad energy.
Yep. Don't you think?
I do think that Big Steve will produce season 2 of The Case.
You do think that? Okay, that's a good one. I don't think so. I don't think so, but I do think that we might talk about the case a bit later, but I think they could have benefited from having a third producer or a second producer on the case to help Kirk and Steve. So if Steve were to come in and do that, that would be great for the case season 2. I don't think it's going to happen. VD, do you think perhaps in the last month or two someone's reached out to Steve with a job offer, and that is why Steve is now leaving?
I don't think he has something lined up, but I think when you're the quality producer that Steve is, naturally there's going to be people reaching out to you with positions at every time. I don't think he'll take something right away, and I think he eventually will start something new. Now, if the case season 2 comes around before there's an opportunity that he likes, that's why I think he'll do case season 2. But obviously, if he accepts another position somewhere, the case goes out the window. But I think he generally is just going to take some time.
Yeah, I doubt that. I think he's got a job
You think
lined up. I think someone came to him and said, we're looking at doing this, and it's going to start in the end of summer. And Steve's gone, okay, I can leave KMS now, have a bit of a break, and then start my new job. There's no way Steve would have left without something else lined up. He's too much of a snake to do that.
Agree to disagree. I guess only time will tell.
We'll find out. Okay, what about the other element of Steve just dropping it in the show like that, not actually ever raising it with Kirk over the last few months about the way he was feeling? I mean, that's a cunt move, isn't it? If you're having a problem at work, you go to your boss and you might talk through a couple of issues. He just goes into a show and says, bang, I'm gone.
So you're complaining that he did it on air? You would have rather
No, not at all. But he could have raised this. If he'd raised it, say, 2 months ago with Kirk and said, I'm unhappy about a few things, and Kirk would have brought it on air, said, Steve and I had a chat after the show yesterday, and he said he's unhappy with stuff. At least then Kirk might have had a sort of inkling what was on the horizon rather than just dropped it in his lap.
You're wrong, though, because that would have been right when the case was getting off the ground. And Kirk already said he didn't really like the way that Steve didn't make it through the end of the case and kind of dropped that bombshell towards the end. So they're starting a new podcast. He probably didn't even know he wanted to leave at that moment. I do think Barstool's handling of the case sales stuff did affect his decision quite heavily. So I'm not sure. 2 months ago, maybe it was a thought in the back of his mind. And then I think as time progressed, it became more certain. But you don't really often go to your boss and say, hey, I'm thinking of quitting in 2 months. What do you think? Like, Kirk probably would have fired him right on the spot.
I just more mean sort of raise some of the issues. And look, I do agree with you. I think the way Barstool handled the case did affect Steve because, it's all about the money for Steve. It's not about the people. It's not about the show. It's about the cash. And so if he can't get his cash from ad revenue, then what's he hanging around for? And I think a year ago he was staying for the Wilbur. That's obviously been pushed back and it just keeps getting pushed back. He realized he couldn't stay till 2022 for that. So he cut and run. Yeah, look, it's hard to go to a boss and say, I want to leave, but you can go and talk about issues that you're not happy with, and just seem to come out of nowhere. But I'm obviously thrilled about it.
What is the issue with like his career being focused on money? Isn't that
no, nothing?
It's not a passion project,
No, but he just obviously wants to just suck the Minifans of all the money they can provide him, and that's it. Kirk always balances the need to earn money with his feelings towards the fans, the way he cares about them, the way he doesn't want to overcharge them for services. So, yeah.
High Blind Mike had a good comment. He said, didn't Menners run every time that Steve called him out?
I've never run from anything. High Blind Mike. So, I'm always ready to, I've always been willing to debate Steve on air. It's never happened. But should we take calls, VD?
Let's line them up.
So while we're waiting for people to call in, do you have a rating out of 10 for the case, VD?
Well, you're the master rater, so I kind of want to hear your breakdown first. I do have a rating, but I want you to go first.
Okay, so I liked the case. It was enjoyable. It wasn't nearly as compelling as a lot of other true crime podcasts I've listened to. I didn't feel that sort of insatiable need to listen to the next episode. I'm not sure why that is the case. I feel like they kind of didn't quite nail the show structure. I don't know about you, VD, but I found the high point of the show when they got Kevin Mailer in for the lie detector test. So kind of
Yeah.
after that, everything felt a bit hollow.
Yeah, I agree. I think for a first effort, you're kind of going in blind. You can prepare as much as you want, but I think producing episodic content is a whole different ballgame than just doing, a regular KMS show. It's a whole different part of your brain. All things considered, given that it was two people, and like they couldn't have anticipated how the case spiraled out. I do think it got to the point where it was too broad, and doing it week to week is interesting. I just, me personally, I don't really consume content that way very much anymore, where it's like you're checking in once a week for something. It's just hard for my brain. And then I felt like the benefit of the case kind of branching out into South Carolina was we get more story, but then it kind of gets maybe less focused on certain areas. And I think maybe that would have been a good case if they did it in, another 6 months or a year when things are more developed. And it's hard because you kind of want to roll the dice and be on the breaking edge of a case. But I think there's some of the best ones I've listened to are, they're not an ongoing as it goes. The fate of the story is determined before they start covering it. It just makes it easier.
I mean, there's a
If I have
famous.
to give a rating out of 10,
Yes.
I would give it a 7.4.
7.4 out of 10. Well, that's a very high mark. Look, you make some good points. There's a podcast in Australia called The Teacher's Pet, which blew up in the States as well. And that was an ongoing story as they were releasing episodes. And the way they treated it, it's interesting. If you go, I'd recommend viewers and you, Dave, go and listen to The Teacher's Pet, the way they deal with that unfolding investigation. I actually don't think the Jennifer Faye disappearance is an interesting story. I think it's a sad story. It's tragic, but it's not that interesting. It's a missing person, a missing girl who, probably fell victim to drug addicts. I mean, it's a story as old as time. I don't think it had the layers that you needed for a sort of true crime podcast. It was sort of, once you got past that initial kind of story, I don't think there was much there. Well, let's take this call.
Hi. So who am I talking to? What's your name?
Hello, this is Visionless Dave.
No, I need to know who I'm talking to, sweetie.
This is Manners. Who's this?
Look, sweetie. Okay, I found your number in my man's phone.
Hello?
Hello, sweetie. Are you there?
Yeah, we are. So what have you got for us? Come on, spit it out, dickhead. We're waiting.
Okay, so why are you calling so much? Are you selling something? Are you a telemarketer? You trying to be nasty? What's up? Let me know.
It's a soundboard. We're getting soundboarded. Yeah.
Who was that?
It's a soundboard for sure. For sure.
Okay, so back to the case. All right. So I don't think the show had layers. I don't think the story was particularly well produced in terms of the arc. And I said, just okay, it was fucking, these meth addicts killed some people. I mean, Jesus Christ, it's not a big deal. It's not a big story. It's obviously a big deal, but I just don't think that, like, you need more to it. So I'm giving it 4.8 out of 10. The case
4.8. That seems harsh. Yeah. That's below.
Well, I thought it was a slightly below average true crime podcast, to be honest.
Isn't average C? Isn't C an average? A 7.4.
I'm sort of going on the Manners scale, which is
okay.
5 out of 10 is sort of an average true crime podcast, and I think this was just below average. But if I'm rating like Kirk, I think Kirk's an 8 or 9 out of 10 on the case. I think he is in his element doing this stuff. And if he gets a proper team around him, I think he could make this a real, big thing for him. He could have a TV show, documentaries. I mean, he has the skills to make great true crime stuff.
I think it could, not that it would be hard to do worse, but I think it'd be hard to do another season and have it be worse. So maybe season 2 will be better, a little more experience going in. That's kind of my review.
Wow, VD, hard to do worse next time. That's pretty scathing, Dave.
I gave it a 7.4. I'm just saying, second time around, everything will be a little easier.
Okay, so I'm going with my 4.8 out of 5. All right, now I want to rate Steve's tenure
4.8 out of 5. Wait,
out
out
of
of
10.
5?
Out of 10. 4.8
Oh,
out
you
of
said
10.
okay. I
Sorry.
was like,
It's gone up immeasurably. No, I want to now rate Steve's tenure as producer of KMS out of 100. So I'll go first. I think as producer of KMS out of 100, I'm giving Steve 62 out of 100 for his almost 2 years at the helm. Adequate job, got the show to air every day. He was reliable, technically proficient. And I think his greatest legacy will not be as an audio producer, but as a builder. The fact that he, got on his hands and knees and built the studio for Kirk. So, I'm giving him a 62 out of 100 and his greatest legacy building the studio.
that seems high for the self-proclaimed biggest Steve hater. Giving him a 62, that seems generous.
I'm trying to be objective, Dave. Personally, obviously, as a person, I probably rate him, 10 out of 100. But just as the fact that he was reliable, I know that when you employ people, part of the job is just getting them to turn up and fucking do it. And we had a KMS show pretty much whenever it was promised. We could hear it. It sounded pretty good most of the time. And, he dropped off towards the end. But yeah, I think he 62 out of 100 is a fair mark.
If I'm being objective, I would say probably a 91 out of 100. I think there's a benefit to how polarizing he was. I like watching people lose their mind over him. I'd say overall a 91, maybe lower in the last few months, but if you think of the good old days, I think it's hard to ignore what he added to the show. Indisputable.
Well, what do you think? What do you think of Dave's future? You've posed the question: Is this going to be too much for Dave? What do you think?
I hope not, because I've been following Barstool forever. It's the most obvious thing that Cullinane is a Barstool guy. He's a great fit for it. Can he handle the pressure? That's another question. I don't know. It's easy to be the nice guy when you don't have a lot of responsibility, or I just think the Minifans can pretty much grind down anybody, and they're on Cully's side, but it doesn't take much to change. He has a lot of good karma built up, but you can never rule it out. I just hope he remembers the little guys, when in 3 years he's head of content at Barstool. What part of this do you think is Cully using Kirk as a stepping stone just to get his foot in the door at Barstool?
I think that's a big part of it. I know Dave's desperate to get in the Barstool door, but I do think Dave genuinely loves Kirk. He loves the show. He loves the Minifans. I don't think there's any falseness there. He's always wanted to be part of this world. And, it's almost like destiny, isn't it, Dave? I mean, this was sort of written in the stars, and we've just sort of, we've just been waiting for that dead fucking load of Steve Robinson to get out of the way and Cullinane to enter, his pride of place. That studio was almost built for him. It should have been called the Dave Cullinane Studio. So I think this is going to be great for him. I'm not worried at all about the Minifans. I think Dave can take all that. I'm actually more worried about the way he and Kirk get on. We've already seen Kirk get annoyed with Dave already. Dave's more energetic than Steve. He's more in your face than Steve. He's a little bit wilder than Steve. So, will that be too much for Kirk? I'm not sure.
Are you choking? Are you okay?
I'm fine. It's too much.
All right. Yeah, I just wonder if the Cullinane hipsters who are like, I've been listening to him since the hits, I wonder if that group will turn on him. I just wonder,
I hope he turns on the Mincel fuckheads. I hope Dave remembers that they are public enemy number one. And as soon as he's, in with the main show, he has to turn his back on that sort of awful crowd of people that thinks they're so edgy and so wild. And, we got Frank the Tank on a stupid fucking StreamYard show a couple of nights ago. I mean, honestly, just fucking shoot yourselves.
shoot yourselves. This leads me to my next question. Are you still running GVE? Are you still the head of GVE?
I will not neither confirm or deny those accusations.
Wow. Well, that kind of leads us in a little bit to like State of the Union Minifans. The YouTube obviously has been hindered. Not a lot of content going out there, but
not a lot of calls tonight either, Dave. What's going on?
Not a lot of calls. Jeff Nadeau said he was going to call in.
I think not being on the YouTube channel is not helping. Like I don't know how many Minifans are on Twitch.
We've been deplatformed. What do we?
So is that the state at the moment that the YouTube channel, the KMS YouTube channel, can't go live anymore because of what happened with Justin, etc.
I think it was like a 90-day ban. That's we got to be close to halfway through it or something.
A crippling blow to the YouTube network. I mean, the buzz on Twitch is not quite the same as on the YouTube.
It's all the GVE, all the Sweater Club frequented Twitch users. Twitch is better than YouTube, though. I can't lie.
Okay.
But so me personally, there hasn't been a lot of content coming out on the KMS.
You're not a 90-Day Fiance fan?
No, I'm not. But
that's a surprise. I pegged you as a viewer.
Wait, real quick. Will you rate Meeting of the Minds? Give a rating for that show.
What is that show? Is that the show that they do on StreamYard? Is it J, BA, and John?
I think it's J and BA plus, cast of rotating characters. I've said it's the worst show in the history of shows. I would rate it like a 0.7 out of 10. I don't know what you would rate it.
Look, I do make the mistake sometimes of clicking on that thinking it's going to be entertaining, and it is
every
awful.
time.
And I'll like flick through it to just sort of see, and it's still them just babbling on bullshit. I'm with you. Maybe I'll give it like a 0.5 out of 10 as well. A little bit lower than you. I saw they had Frank the Tank on a couple of days ago. I mean, I don't know Frank the Tank that well. I know he's a barstool, but how did he end up on that show? I mean, is he that desperate for attention? Is he that desperate for attention?
He's for the people.
Hello, caller. You're welcome to Mena's Live, Gathering of the Goats. I'm Mena's. Visionless Dave is joining me. Caller, spit it out.
Jeff Nadeau.
Speaking of desperate for attention, how are we doing, Jeff?
Yeah, that's what it is. The guy on fucking Twitch right now, that's 16 people, but I'm desperate for attention.
Yeah, I would say so. So what's your issue?
Who the fuck are you? I mean,
I said I have some. I've taken umbrance with maybe some of your past online behavior.
No, you took umbrance with one thing I did, and you got a fucking problem. You don't know what it was about. You want to act like a fucking asshole on the internet, you're going to get treated like one. And this guy
I just think it's a pussy move. It's someone called you fat, and you're a large guy. Your name is Big Man on campus,
not anymore.
Once you're fat, you're always fat. Once you're fat, you're always fat. And I think it's a pussy move to like tweet at someone's company because they're like, oh, this guy called me fat. You say that's we're all men here. Let's be respectful. I think that's female behavior.
Maybe next time he won't act like an asshole to me. And maybe you should act like a fucking gentleman and just say, hey, dude, I didn't like what you did, instead of calling me a bitch. You don't even know who the fuck I am. You don't know me, and I don't know you.
You're Jeff Nadeau.
So,
I mean, you sound like a fucking bitch. I mean, with this call,
Jesus Christ.
If you try to dispel this rumor, you're proving VD exactly. I mean, was the biggest mistake you ever did walking out of Barstool, Jeff?
Say that again, brother. I didn't hear.
Was the biggest mistake you've ever done walking out of Barstool?
Was it the biggest mistake? No.
Yeah, of your life.
The biggest mistake. I get talked about now, though. I mean,
are you using Kirk to try to claw your way back in?
No. And if you know me, you would have known. I barely I didn't know Kirk. I listen to his show occasionally. No offense, but I like Kirk, but I don't think it had anything to do. Kirk is it's the Rico thing. It's fun. He's trying to get in the mud, and I respect that. But it has nothing to do with that.
I think it's fun.
I have a fine opportunity, what I'm doing right now. I'm talked about. I'm still relevant in Barstool circles, and That's fine for me.
So do you want back into Barstool or no?
Yeah, I'm for sure I'll go back. I had a lot of issues with certain people, and if you know Barstool, you know about that.
Yeah. Okay, Jeff. Well, if you have anything else, I think I stated my point. We disagree. I think it's a bitch move to tweet at someone's boss because they call you fat,
listen,
but that's just
Dave,
we just disagree.
Listen, Dave, I'm gonna say this now because you're acting, you're talking normal now. Was it maybe a little too far? Possibly. But over the years, I've dealt with a lot of people on the internet, and this guy, I guess, just caught me on a wrong fucking day. And sometimes you want to teach these people a lesson. There's nothing I can do to this guy, so maybe I did go a little far with it. And I ended up contacting the guy and apologizing, and he ended up acting okay over it. So
that's all I'm
just
saying.
Call me a bitch. Yeah, I mean, you don't know me though, so that was kind of whack.
Well, I mean, you kind of just admitted that what you did was wrong, and could be classified as a bitch move. So we kind of agree.
Well, I mean, maybe at that point it was the wrong thing to do, but you and your fucking co-host, I don't know who the fuck that guy is. Where the fuck are you from, bro? What are you? You don't know me. I don't know you either. Who are you talking to me like that?
Well, I mean, you come on and you start whining, saying I'm not a bitch, but you were sounding like a bitch. That's all. I mean, that's all. I mean, Jeff, I don't know you. You're right. I'm all the way in Sydney, Australia, and just you call up whining like that, you're just going to cop it. But I think you've apologized. You've backtracked.
Some
you've
fucking
agreed
guy
with
on the internet called me a bitch.
Okay, big deal. What have you fucking got fucking nappies on or something, you baby?
No, I'm just trying to talk to people that talking about me.
Toughen up. I mean, if the worst thing that happens, you get called a bitch. Big deal.
No, let me ask you something though, and I'm curious about this because you seem to have a lot of shit to say. So I'll ask you. I've dealt with over the last couple of days. I've dealt with a lot of people from the Minifan group, and every single person has been super cool. Like they're super positive. They love Kirk. It's great. It's a cool audience. They're very loyal, I've noticed. What the fuck are your two problems? You sound like fucking shitbags, both of you. All you do is talk shit about people on the show. Who the fuck are you two? Seriously.
I think you're wildly...
Have you not fucking heard of Manners Live? Have you not heard of Manners Live? I mean, you swan into the Minifan world and you're throwing shit at me.
I have no fucking idea what that is.
Well, that's your problem,
Jeff. You're greatly misconceived with what the Minifan universe is like if you think it's all positivity.
They seem like okay people to me. They seem like
a loyal
fan base that likes...
That reaction right there just makes me think you're not going to last more than a month. They're going to break you down.
Again, I just admitted to you, I'm not part of. I didn't know a ton about Kirk. He seems like a nice guy. Maybe we'll do trivia together. I like his show. I don't know.
You seem like a nice guy, Jeff. When you're not trying to get people fired, you seem like a nice guy too.
So let me ask you, Manners. Let me ask you a question.
Yes,
okay, when
Jeff?
that guy behind the scenes, which you don't know what he said to me behind the scenes, what the fuck would you do about it?
Well, I'm not going to go to his boss and try and get him fired from his job.
I didn't go to his boss.
Well, you went to his company. That's the same thing.
I mentioned the company. It was a bad day. It was a bad.
Okay, well, that's fine. You've admitted your mistake.
Yeah,
we all make mistakes. We all make mistakes, Jeff. Look, it's good that you're so sort of.
You have to say, or are you just going to? Is that all, Dave? Do you have anything else?
That's probably my biggest complaint. Also, I'm not I think college basketball stinks. So that probably influences my decision. But yeah, it's really only the Twitter thing.
I think college basketball stinks. So that's okay. Yeah. Fair enough.
And we'll listen. We'll go and listen to this gangster podcast.
Yeah,
that would be well.
Have you heard of? Have you heard of? He used to run in Brooklyn. A guy called Medium Poppy.
No, I never heard of him.
He used to run with the Brooklyn Crews back in the day.
John from Scranton ripped him off some cash. John from Scranton did a big number on him and stole a lot of money once. Set the whole world alight. Anyway, Jeff, thanks for calling. Good luck. I hope you get it back into Barstool. We all have regrets. Yours probably bigger than most. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's so fun. I don't even really know who Jeff Nadeau is.
We just passed him around the ring, Prove my point though. I don't really know much about. I know actually he keeps saying I don't know who him. Like he's a public guy who puts out content. I have a pretty good perception of who he is. I don't like his content. I'm not a college basketball fan, but he will not last in the Minifan world. He gets so triggered online. He's probably the inverse of the Dave Cullinane. He won't last till trivia next year. There's no way. No way.
Yeah. So where we were talking before, Jeff called, we were talking about the YouTube network. Would you like to see it kind of bounce back a little bit as one of the star creators, VD, one of the many producers of the Rundown? Would you like to see a slight rebirth of the YouTube? And if so, what would you like to see come back?
I see. There hasn't been a lot of YouTube stuff, but I kind of like where everything's at now. I talk shit about Meeting of the Minds, but there's a bunch of people who apparently enjoy watching it. I like Jay. I like BA. I like the talking loud, saying nothing guys. Kirking off is good, although it does seem to be losing a little bit of steam recently. Not everybody's showing up. I don't know what that's all about. Hopefully they can make it through. I like that show though. So there's some good stuff not on the network, but I kind of like it that way.
Interesting. I'm not ever into talking loud, saying nothing. They never talk about the KMS show. Don't they talk about other stuff?
A little bit. It's they don't really talk about KMS much, but there's a lot of people from the world that are involved. So it's like a half and half,
Yeah.
Arnold Palmer.
Hello, you've reached Manners Live. I'm the host, Manners.
Hi guys,
Hello.
how you guys doing?
I'm good, thank you. Who's
Hello,
this?
can you hear me?
Yes.
This is the artist formerly known as Blind Mike's daddy.
Yeah.
How we
wow.
doing?
How you guys doing? How's the show going so far?
Good. Tough loss for the Americans today.
Oh, it was devastating.
What are we talking
Well,
about?
I mean, it's a friendly. It's such a good learning thing to get them ready for their CONCACAF Nations League.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, this is as boring as your wrestling chat on the last Kirking Off. Tell me, Blind Mike's daddy, it's often that the listener falls asleep listening to a podcast, but rarely that the hosts are falling asleep during the show. I mean, have you thought of like coffee or methamphetamines or something before recording to just give you a little bit of a pep in your step, maybe?
I know. I get up early, so maybe I'll go to bed early. Try to work on my sleep schedule, maybe get that straightened out.
Well, just fake it.
I could. But I just want to check in and say hello. Good luck with the show, guys. We'll keep in touch.
This is on par with your recent level of phone performances.
Wow.
What's going on? You just
Wow. He's in a
cannot
slump.
nail a phone call.
He's in a slump.
Well, no, I just do the prank calls now. I'm trying to make it up on the other end,
Okay,
You did have a good call into the radio show. That was a good call.
Yeah, I got another one in the pipeline. I'm just waiting for Mike to be in the studio for them to play it. It's the same guy, the poor guy we keep targeting.
That poor
it's like
guy.
harassment. What's going on with Kirking Off and getting guests? VD's alleging that it's hard for you to get guests at the moment.
No, that's not what I said.
On?
I said it seems like not everybody. It's summertime, so it's a little bit. Right. Not everyone's there every week. Blind Mike's daddy's been skipping the show. He's got a family or some bullshit like that. He needs to get his priorities straight.
Well, the news special, there wasn't much room for me to do the news special. I think I left that to Andrew and Buddy because they're better at it than I am as far as interviews go. So I just did the voiceover work, and then we had TJ on this week. I think next week we're not doing a show because I have my wedding, and then the week after that, Buddy's got to try to find a guest for the show.
Congratulations on the wedding.
Is this your second marriage?
Yeah, right, yeah, second marriage. Second marriage. Mike's stepmom.
I would be remiss if I didn't, take this moment to say it is Memorial Day. I'd like to thank Blind Mike's daddy for his service, all the troops.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Manners, can you do a salute? Salute. Thank you, Blind Mike's daddy. If you don't have anything else, I think we're gonna.
I don't. All right.
Get back to whatever Manners wants.
Another electric call from Blind Mike's daddy. The guy is Mr. Entertainment.
Isn't there a history of you hating the troops, hating American troops?
No, I like the American troops. The only thing I will say, I got a massive shock because obviously we don't have Memorial Day here. So when on Friday they said no show Monday, it was like a knife in the heart. I was like, why?
And knife in the heart might be a bad choice for the Memorial Day. Maybe use like a different one. Anyway,
well, it's a metaphor. It's a metaphor,
Yeah.
David.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to the YouTube, to the KMS World content. I want to sort of keep
Should
going. So
Mincel Intel be brought back? Should the
never,
ban be lifted?
never. Hell could freeze over before they bring that stupid show back. Never again.
Gatekeeping?
What?
Are you gatekeeping?
I'm not gatekeeping. I mean, I don't make the decisions, do I? I'm Dave Cullinane and Justin Trudeau or Trudell will make these decisions. I'm just giving my opinion. I would rather not have the Mincels. I mean, I think everything about the Mincels stays the same. They're not welcome. Go away. Just because Dave Cullinane's come into the world doesn't change that. But, I think kirking off has been a really important part of the Minifan world over the last 6 months. Because, as all the other content's dropped off and gone away, they've just kept plowing through releasing episode after episode. So I give them great credit. All Aboard, unfortunately, still continues.
You
they've-
love
they've
that
got-
show. Just admit it.
I enjoy
Weren't you
All
just
Aboard.
on it as a guest?
I was. And look, I don't mind listening to them when I'm nodding off to sleep at night. It is a nice, relaxing show. But it is true. It is a nice, relaxing show. It's just like three buddies talking, but they don't really talk about KMS stuff. And I think we're missing that. There should be almost something every day reacting to the KMS world. You've got Justin's 3 wrap-up shows. There should be stuff in between. There needs to be a weekly rundown. There needs to be a wrap-up show that is not afraid to have a negative opinion, because obviously Justin's never going to say anything negative about the main show. So, I would really like to see Dave Cullinane institute, some big changes on the network.
The return of great thinkers.
That would be good. Absolutely. I mean, that's where it all started, isn't it?
You don't think that Cullinane brings a kind of levity to the show that will allow all YouTube bans to be lifted? I think it does. I think it should be a fresh start with everything. Wipe the slate.
Except the Mincel Intel guys. A fresh start with everybody else.
Specifically who?
Okay, so let's go through. You asked me for my top 5 worst Minifans in the lead up to this show, and I've narrowed it down to 3.5. So my top worst Minifans are, BA is not a Minifan. He's a fan of Minifan. So he's not eligible, but if he was eligible, BA would be the worst. John from Scranton, 2nd worst Minifan. Jay's Mayhem, 3rd worst Minifan. And then Adam the Jew, 4th worst Minifan.
That's a solid list. I can't argue with anyone on that list.
Adam
except
is...
BA. I think you hate BA because every year you go head to head for him for the International Fan of the Year at the Blobies. I think that's why you don't like BA.
He's a very annoying person. All of them are very annoying, and they're terrible Minifans. They're terrible people. Adam just makes the list for just being repulsive. I mean, just a repulsive person.
I'm not going to argue that.
Who are your worst Minifans?
So I definitely have Jay's Mayhem in the number 1 spot just because of how frustrating he is. I did just refollow him. I go back and forth, unfollow, refollow. I kind of shuffle him and Will in and out of my life as like my brain dead moron friends that I for some reason care about. So Will's out right now.
Who's the dumbest of the two?
Oh man,
because that's a tough one. That's a race to the bottom.
Because Will is smarter, but it's almost a dumber person thing to do, to be smart and not use your intelligence. So it's like Jay is just, Jay is Jay, but he maximizes his potential at times. I think Will is dumber because, Ivy League this and that, and I'm not convinced the kid can even tie his shoes,
Okay.
So
yeah.
I'll go Will. Will did have a little bit of a chip on his shoulder when he didn't get a shot at the producer job. Kirk kind of laughed him off. I know that kind of hurt Will's feelings. So Will's out. I would say worst Minifans, Jay. And then this one, I don't have a huge issue with this guy, but I did see a funny nickname for him. So I'll say David from Boringland, aka David from Maryland. I just thought that's a funny name. And then the 3 spot I'm going to have to give to Ziggy Robinson.
Yeah,
where's he gone? This is supposed to be his big moment, and he's been nowhere. He can't dunk. Steve served him up an alley-oop, and he can't bring it home. There's been, he's just kind of a waste of time at this point.
Yeah. I just some of the Minifans have been very quiet lately, especially Ziggy. But look, I'm not going to lie to you, VD. There's been a lot of sort of DMs between Steve Hayter celebrating the events of the last few weeks. Warden, Ziggy, um, even Mayo. Mayo's been in touch. It's been a real time of joy for the robber fan haters. The Steve Robinson haters. So Ziggy's been taking his victory laps in private. It's a shame you and Ziggy and Red never got your final rundown together, that you were too sensitive to go on air and do it.
They wouldn't go live with me. Turn down the 2v1. I said, fuck a 1v1. I'll do a 2v1. And they were like, no, won't do it. But I've made peace with Ziggy. Red apologized to me privately. So I accept his apology and Ziggy's.
All right. Well, VD, looks like we're coming to the end of the first gathering of the GOATs. It's your last chance to call up. I don't know who's watching, but if you are watching, give us a call. Thank you to Jeff Nadeau for calling and Blind Mike's daddy for calling. But before we go, I just wanted to wrap up the last sort of week of fill-in producers with you, VD. So we had Carano, Craig, and Rob and Tim. So let's start with Monday's show, Carano and Blind Mike. I thought that was a stellar show. Kirk talking about how he told Steve not to come in again. And the three of them, Carano, Mike, and Kirk, had a great dynamic. Another almost 100 out of 100 show. Thanks for calling Manners Live.
Manners VD, what's going on?
How we doing?
Fez?
It's your good pal Fez. What's up, Manners?
Oh, it's great to talk to you. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. I just want to say it's a pleasure getting you two together. VD, I'm glad that you let that bum Ziggy Robinson, and Manners, I'm glad you're back on. But I do have an issue with you, Manners, that I want to bring up. You just made a comment that there should be a little bit more on the YouTube, the KMS YouTube, and you want it to go against the show. I think you have it in you.
I think I have it in me.
Yeah.
I think you can be critical of the show, but you can say it in a concise manner where it won't send Kirk on a tailspin, but I think you're afraid to do it because he blocks you over it.
No, when Kirk blocks you, that does get to your head. That gets that sends you into Jeff Nadeau mode. It does.
Fez, I'm not scared of being blocked, or I'm not scared of saying negative stuff. Generally, though, now that Steve's gone, I don't have as much to criticize. I'm going to be a lot happier, going to be positive manners. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about things since Steve left. But I'm more than willing to jump on the YouTube channel and discuss where I think the show's lacking, or the many areas they could improve the case. The whole list of areas where they went wrong.
I never thought I'd see the day where Fez and Menners had a cool, calm, and composed conversation. This is history. Fez has honor.
You want our kids to fight each other. Like, I remember you DMing me about that.
I did want your kids to fight each other. I wanted this to be passed on to future generations.
Well,
but Fez,
I'll be honest.
Go on.
Menners, the best time was when you were on Menners Live, just ripping everyone, calling people cunts, telling me to fuck off. That was, I think, the best time in the show. Right now, the show has lost a step. You have to admit it. The show has lost a step. When Jared Carabas is on, it's like two guys trying to talk each other out of suicide. It's brutal.
Carabas is terrible. Carabas is terrible. I listened to 20 minutes of Friday's show. Carabas, I just can't do it. I can't do it.
Yeah, I like Jared. Well, look, that's very kind of you, Fez. Very kind of you.
I'm glad you guys. I'm glad you guys are doing this. I'm excited for it. Manners, DD, have a great night.
Amen, brother. Get back in the garage and keep building some go-karts.
I am. My wife's gonna be yelling right now. I gotta go. Bye.
Wow,
he's a legend, and I could understand him through the lisp this time. So, but yeah, terrific guy, Fez. Never had an issue with him. So, look, let's just go back to the beginning of the week. Carano and Mike, great show on Monday. Did you enjoy it?
Monday, it was a good show. Carano, my one complaint is he does do that thing that Kirk criticizes him of, where he holds back. Like, he hates John from Scranton, but he just won't say it. There's no downside to being like the passive aggressive thing. Just tell him you hate him. I don't know. That frustrates me. He doesn't drive me crazy like he used to. But Craig stole the week. I mean, Craig was by far and away the best fill-in. Sources have told me he's been tapped again in the near future. So I would love to see. And the more, that Craig Kirk chemistry was pretty undeniable. Obviously, he's got it with Blind Mike already. But I've been enjoying the Blind Mike project. I think Craig is hilarious. He's kind of a lovable dope. You can say anything to him, he'll just retweet it. So I like Craig, and I expect big things out of him in the future.
Yeah, I was really nervous about Craig going in there, but actually, what he brings to the Blind Mike project, which is virtually nothing, actually works in his favor in the KMS show, because if you try and be too much around Kirk, that's when you get into trouble. If you try and sort of barge your way into conversations, Madawaska Rob style, that's when you get into trouble. Whereas your Craig's so understated, has zero personality. He just basically sat there, made sure the show was recorded, had everything lined up, drops wise, and made the odd comment. He didn't try and be too much. He didn't try and make an impression, because that's impossible for him to do. And I actually think that, worked in his favor. Doesn't work in the Blind Mike project, because I think he's supposed to be a part of that show. And
you don't even listen. You can't give an honest rating.
I've tried to listen to the Blind Mike project. Honestly, VD, I get about 10 or 15 minutes into every show, and
you don't get fired up for the
boring.
You don't get fired up for the war on Pang Dang,
I haven't got that far, because that was probably the end of the show, and by then I was like driven off a road into a ditch. But yeah, so I thought Craig did really well, actually. Just understated. If he's in there with Mike and Kirk, that's a good little unit, because Mike and Craig, can bounce off each other a little bit. Very minor.
I'd rather have Craig and Mike Fridays than Carabas. Just double up Craig and Mike Fridays. Nice and light.
I like Carabas, but I have a few big criticisms of him, and maybe let me start. I hate people that say they're going to do things and don't do it. That is one of my pet hates, not just in life. Like, I'm happy for someone to say, I'm not going to do something, fine, but don't say you're going to go on a show, or say you're going to go on the Aussie Minifan show, or do these things and then all of a sudden don't do them. I mean, I think that's sort of a sign of like a pea brain. Like, Carabas is so dumb that he thinks just saying yes to things and then not doing them is okay.
Would that same logic apply to when we were supposed to have our 1v1 and you backed out last minute? Does that make you
I actually gave you the reasons why, and I told you I wasn't going to do it. Unlike, I didn't just ghost you and just disappear. So yeah, I think Carabas. Also, I found that whole thing with Carabas's mental health battle really insufferable when he went on Token CEO. And I actually sent in some audio to be played last Friday, but Rob and Tim decided not to make the show entertaining, so they didn't play that audio. But basically, he's got Carabas going, I had a huge mental health battle. Oh, and my mental health battle was I couldn't go to the gym, and now I'm home with mummy and everything's better. I mean, really, just grow up, Carabas. Clearly, you were just homesick. It wasn't some mental health battle.
I'm fine with him doing the mental health thing, but then you just can't get upset when people are like, oh, you're not really a part of the Barstool universe, because it's just a fact. And I just find him so boring. Half the show, every time he's on, is recapping like what he hasn't listened to. He's just dumb. He just kind of repeats anything Kirk says. He's got the canned, oh, hit the post. Oh, it's so funny. He's just so boring. Like, so boring. If you want to talk about someone that, like, Kirk said Steve shouldn't be on the show because he doesn't want to be there. I mean, Carabas doesn't want to be there. He just knew he lost Barstool Radio. He said, I need to fill up some time. I'm nervous about my contract. Kirk's local. I'll do it once a week. Makes myself look good purely for the resume. He doesn't give a shit. He gives less of a shit than Steve did.
I don't know. I disagree with that take. I think JC does care, and I've always liked Carabas.
Did you just say JC? You just call him JC?
Yeah.
JC? Is that a thing, or is that just your thing?
I don't know.
I've never heard anyone call him JC.
Kind of make up my nicknames for people. And yeah, and actually, you know, I have to say, I listened to Kirk beforehand, but when Kirk was on Section 10 in 2015, that really helped me get more into Kirk. So you know, I like Carabas, but you're right, he's a bit of a sort of dead weight at the moment. I hate people that overpromise and don't deliver. And you know, I just don't like this thing of people like Steve and JC using mental health as an excuse for everything. If you want to quit a job, say you want to quit a job. If you want to move back to Boston, say you want to move back to Boston. Don't pretend that you've got some, you know, huge mental health battle, because I think it cheapens the battle that real sufferers are going through.
Amen. I think he's a pussy too. If international calls aren't getting through, BA, you can call my phone and I'll put it on speaker if that's an issue.
All right. So, and the last thing, I know you probably hated Friday with Madawaska Rob and Tim Ridgefield.
I listened to 20 minutes of it. I couldn't get past that. I love Tim. I told Tim I could listen to like audio of him snoring and find it entertaining. He's just such a weird guy in a good way. He's just like quirky. He doesn't have a shtick. Rob gets caught up in the Carano thing of like overthinking everything. He's a good guy. I like him, but just on air, and you've agreed with me privately, he just kind of stinks.
I've never agreed with you privately on that. I like Rob on air. I thought Friday's show was very entertaining. Just hearing like how awkward and nervous Tim and Rob was entertaining. And I thought they did a good job. You know, I thought Rob's producing was, you know, 6 or 7 out of 10, mainly because of the sound quality. And I don't think the drops or the stuff he brought to the show was that effective. But I actually think Rob would be a good person to have in there every now and then if they can't get someone to sit in the second chair.
I don't hate him as a backup producer, backup, just because he's a good target, you know, can kind of move him around the ring, work the body. He gives you a lot to make fun of. He doesn't take himself too seriously. So I like everything like that about him. But I'd say backup to Justin, or I go Craig, Justin, Carano, then Rob. Then intern Will.
It's not bad. That's not bad.
Yeah.
All right. Well, any final thoughts, VD, for this premiere of Gathering of the Goats, the Men is Live special?
No, I'd say thank you to Jeff Nadeau for calling in. I still think you're kind of a bitch. Happy for Cullinane. This was good. The callers were kind of terrible, but you know, and who knows when episode 2 will be. This show just kind of pops up whenever it feels necessary. But I do think Fez has a point. You should step up and, you know, get Menors Live back. Once Cullinane starts and things are going, Twitter is back. Twitter feels back. A lot more going on. So it's exciting. The future is good.
Well, if you and I can do Menors Live together on a regular basis, VD, I'm definitely going to consider it. Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for calling in and watching. And, well, you know, I think we're back on Wednesday for a big show. So 2 shows this week. Yeah, I hope everyone is as excited as I am about the Dave Cullinane era. I said the show maybe plateaued, but I really think it's about to go to the next level. And it was sort of on the slow decline, but I think there could be a sharp increase in quality.
To the moon.
Yeah. So, Justin, thank you for producing this, and we'll see you later. Thanks, brother. Justin. You can end.